Growing up, it was very painful like that when you saw all these rich kids and, flaunting their wealth and you felt so poor. The thing that I remember from childhood in Chennai was wearing wedding clothes and standing in the bus stop and waiting for the bus to go attend a wedding. And I was thinking, why, this is so unfair. Wish we had a car.
It's not how much money you have, but
Yes.
what you do with the money and how you spend that money is.
One of my very early childhood dream was to get my mom into a shopping mall, give her a credit card, ask her to shop whatever she wants without looking at the price tag.
The first time I made some money was 2007, and then Kingfisher had just started and they had a business class. Kingfisher First, they called it. And it was 25,000 rupees. It was not a lot of money. 25,000 rupees return trip to Delhi. And decided we're going to fly Kingfisher First. And you would not believe how much I had to fight with myself.
Everybody can relate.
So at some point,
India, a $4 trillion plus economy, growing faster. And what that is doing is creating new kinds of companies, new kind of capital, and new kind of ambition and aspirations in the nation. As a result, this country is going to and is creating number of millionaires at a pace we haven't seen ever before. Who are these millionaires? Where are they coming from? What kind of wealth, what kind of aspirations, and what kind of ambitions and consumption these millionaires are showing? Are they a very different species vis-a-vis their previous generation? And will they build wealth and spend it in a very, very different way? Those are some of the questions that we are going to dive in today in our episode. And for that, we've got a very eminent set of panelists, guests, drawn out from three very different aspects of the society. Rishikesh SR, he's the co-founder of Rapido, one of India's largest mobility platforms, a proper Bangalorean. Shobha Narayan, who is a co-founder of Zapigo. So late in her life, she's become a co-founder and she's excited doing that. And Deepak Shenoy is a co-founder of Capital Mind. He basically has a very bird's eye and even worm's eye view of money, right? How money is being earned, how it's being invested and spent. So welcome to the podcast and welcome to the show, and look forward to some fascinating conversation today. Maybe Deepak, you want to start with and tell us, you've grown up in Delhi, Mumbai and Bengaluru now. What was it like when you looked at the millionaires of that era, their wealth, and how that money behaved, manifested that you saw from the external world?
the moneyed wealth in Delhi was either familial because you came from rich families and therefore inherited that money, or some first-gen entrepreneurs who would earn primarily because of liaisons with the government. I remember once when my father was a banker, so that's why I was, so he would get posted all over the place. And the idea over there at that time, and it's probably only changed in the last decade, is that you borrow money, you do whatever you want with it, and then you don't pay back and negotiate how much you're going to pay back and borrow that money again, which you were supposed to use to pay back what the first loan was, and ad nauseum, right? So your wealthy was how much you displayed it, but you weren't it. And that was it was almost like a different class. They thought differently, it was a different value system, because this was normalized, right? Borrow and not repay was perfectly fine. Whereas in my head, it was a bad thing. And it was always ingrained in us, like, as relatively, more middle class, as a thought process is, money is important. If you borrow it, you have to return it. Your social, this thing is important, and you cannot lose your image, or whatever it is. These things did not quite happen the same way in this relatively richer class. They had different systems. They had within them there would be different classes saying he's rich like this and I'm rich like that, and therefore my rich is more useful than that person's rich. Yeah. Money shaped a very different thought process to the point where you would just not imagine what you could ever do with that kind of wealth if you ever earned it. I mean, if I knew the figures I know now, that perhaps I earn or perhaps I have at that time, it would be completely like, dude, if that's, I'm done, I'm retired, I'm it's
Right.
over by this time, right?
Absolutely.
I
And
think
what was it like when you went to Mumbai?
so Mumbai was much later, though. I mean, there were different points. My father got transferred there in 1993. I was in college, and he worked in a bank, and the bank had financed the reclamation way back. And in that process, they had financed a bunch of developers. When those developers sometimes couldn't pay back the entire amount, they would give the bank flats. So a lot of the public sector banks actually own
Owns a lot.
apartments so we were in Cuff Parade, which is relatively.
nice.
So I had no idea, and I would go there and I was like, huh, okay, it's a nice apartment. It's a big apartment, 4-bedroom apartment which I was told later is like ridiculous luxury. And of course, we were like 4 people, so why would we need a 4-bedroom apartment? But anyway, so we'd go down to play basketball, and then a bottle of water would cost like 20 rupees. And 20 rupees was a lot of money. I mean, a chikki was 25 paisa at the time. To give you an idea of,
This is the 80s, 90s.
this is the 90s, early 90s. So, if you went down and there were kids that were playing basketball with you and they would pay 20 rupees every day for a bottle of water, and I would carry a bottle of water, I'm like, no way am I spending 20 bucks on, rupees on. So there's a very different lifestyle, very different mindset. Rich was just a different class at that time.
So we'll dive into some of that as well. Shobha, you want to talk about, you said you grew up in Chennai.
Yeah, I grew up in Chennai.
And you should definitely bring a perspective from Chennai and Bengaluru, where you've lived as well for years.
Yeah.
What was growing up like? What did wealth mean, and what were you observing?
I think the biggest difference that I see from growing up, I came of age in Chennai in the late 80s. Money was not celebrated in the way that it is today. So I still remember kids saying, I want to be a train engine driver, I want to be an astronaut. Today, somehow, the great thing about entrepreneurship is it is all, everybody knows what it brings, but the most special thing it brings is wealth. And so I asked, when my kids grew up here in Nafil, in Basveshwaranagar, and later in Aditi, when their friends came home and I would say, so what do you want to be? And they'd be like, Auntie, I want to be rich. I don't remember I don't remember saying I want to be rich so candidly. Maybe I did want to be rich, but I don't recall saying that. It was more about aspirations, about, I want to pass, I want to go to America, I want to get visa, green card, this sort of stuff. So for me, I grew up in Chennai, first 20 years in a fairly traditional family, got a scholarship to go to the US and then studied there. I became an artist, a sculptor, and then lived in New York for about 15 years and understood wealth from the New York angle, which is people actually saying, who am I? I am a guy with a lot of zeros in my paycheck. So that is a very tangible way. And then I decided to return, my family and I decided to return to India, and I've written a book called Return to India. And what I say is India's specialness is very intangible. It's very hard to say, how can you value, the things I do every day, walking in Shivaji Nagar, getting a kadak chai. Money is less, but the experience is more. So how do you value things that is very hard to put a number on? With the smell of mallige early in the morning, bird song, parakeets, butterflies, blue Mormons fluttering in your garden. To me, the pleasures of life in Bangalore, it's so hilarious. You have auto drivers carrying a huge ladder with 2 hands on either side of the auto holding it. To me, those things are what gives life vibrance in Bangalore. And it's hard to monetize, it's hard to put a number on that now.
Right.
Rishi, you want to talk about Bengaluru just because you've been probably somebody who's lived most of his life here.
Yeah, probably 15 years.
Yeah. Talk about what Bengaluru was when you were growing up. What did being wealthy mean at that point of time?
I grew up from in a city called Srinivaspur, Kolar. So just like any other middle class parents, I had 2 options to choose. Either had to be an engineer or a doctor. So I chose engineer while my sister was a doctor, right? So I think that's where I stepped into Bangalore.
When did you come here? Which year?
2010.
2010.
Yeah, 16 years now.
So IT boom,
Pretty much,
all
right?
that
So
had
for my
begun to
college in
happen.
PS here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I came in and I could clearly relate. I can see the difference between somebody who can speak English well, and somebody who can't speak English well was a barrier, right? At the
that
college
time.
probably,
Yeah.
right? And it started also with people who can spend high versus who can't spend high. In my college hostel, actually, there used to be a friend of mine who he used to come to college in an luxury vehicle,
Okay.
right? And people around him and the vibe that he used to carry, right? That was everybody's perception. That's where my conflict between what actual wealth that I thought at my childhood and what people here perceive came up, right? That conflict actually
So he was a young
pushed
guy
in.
with
Yeah,
a
pretty much.
swagger.
Yeah, but yeah, still being rooted, it's hard for me to understand why people certainly spend extremely more amount of money for something that doesn't require so much just because they have their spend, right?
Deepak, you want to talk about when you came to Bengaluru. Which year did you come?
I was out here up to my third standard.
Okay.
So 2012 is when I moved back. I moved
Yeah.
back from Gurgaon.
Okay.
In a circumstance when I wanted to start a company and I wasn't sure whether it would be Gurgaon or Bangalore.
You want to talk a bit about Capital Mind, which is quite relevant here.
The idea was to provide research and understand how to create wealth at a retail level. This was the idea. We started off creating these things, saying, okay, this is how you should plan your life. Over time, we started to build a company that was actually managing money. Our customers came and said, we don't want to do all this stuff, because if we had to do it, why would I leave my regular job, because there's so much work. Can you just do it for us? So we started, let's manage money. And that's when we started to get to understand how people's relationship with money was at a very more intimate level.
So since when have you been noticing this?
2017, 2016 to 17 is when we started.
You started, and
so yeah, because then when you're actually managing people's money, they tell you about it. Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they'll
absolutely.
say, oh, I have
and
this
we are
much
going
money.
to dive into
Yes.
that.
so I have this much money. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And for the life of me, you have to deal with your own middle class mentality. Like, okay, this is weird, but I have to deal. I had to unlearn, and I credit my co-founder Shrey for that, because I had to get this idea that money is just raw material for the rest of your life. If you're making food, onions and potatoes and all are raw material. So in that sense, you don't value that. You don't value yourself in potatoes and onions. It's there to make food, and that's what you enjoy, right? So money is there to do something with it, and that is something to enjoy. It took me a long while to get my mind out of my value or my net worth is about the money I own versus what I actually do with the money. So if you value yourself in the money you own, you technically have lost something when you've spent it doing something you liked, and therefore lost a little bit of your self-worth. But if you weigh your self-worth in the things you've done, then your value has gone up and the money is irrelevant.
So just understanding the psyche that you were talking about, it's not how much money you have, but what you do with the money is, and how you spend that money is.
Yes.
What do you think, Shobha? What have you noticed?
Money is very fascinating to me because it is tied a lot with identity, it is tied a lot with self-worth, it is tied a lot with who you are. So women spend differently from men. Younger generation spends differently from the older generation. You have to unlearn stuff if you want to enjoy wealth. And there's that famous line that the best money management is when the check to the undertaker bounces. So you've spent everything that you want, and when you die, it bounces. So there is that. So I think money, the way you spend it, there's a book written by a woman called Elizabeth Dunn. She's a professor at University of British Columbia, and her book is called Happy Money. So having money, I mean, it says lots of the things that we all intuitively know, which is buy experiences, invest in people. But I mean, by invest in people, not in the, VC sense, but, take your friends out for a meal. Delay gratification, even if you have the extraordinary amount of wealth, one way to enjoy it is also to delay gratification. So buy that Coldplay ticket for X thousand or X $100,000 rupees if you want, but then wait for it, buy it 6 months in advance. So there are lots of tricks you can use to enjoy your wealth once you have it. There is also the other approach, which is to say that enjoyment doesn't equal money, doesn't always have to equal money. Many of life's greatest gifts have no link to money. You can
Absolutely right.
Most beautiful things in life cannot be bought.
Yeah.
There's no price to it, right?
Yeah. But one thing one thing that fascinates me as a woman is how, for example, Mackenzie Bezos can't seem to give away her wealth fast enough. Same with Melinda French Gates. So if you look at these rich women, it seems like they're almost, they're shedding their wealth at a speed which Jeff Bezos, for example, her ex-husband is not doing. So then what does that say? Does it say that women want to shed wealth because they view their husband's money as a shackle? Do men parlay their wealth better because they use, I mean, again, I'm using only these two examples. Jeff Bezos parlays it for power, as a vehicle for power. Neeta Ambani spends very differently from Rohini Nilekani, who is also Bangalore-based philanthropist. So how do you parlay your wealth for what you want is also very fascinating, and it varies.
But Shobha, if you look back at a historical arc level, right, what are some big shifts that you see in the way, say, in India, the wealth, the moneyed class, how the wealth behaved, and our own approach to, showing off?
Yes.
What are some of the big shifts that you think has happened? At a pan-India level, then we can dive into the specific city level.
The royalty of India certainly were very comfortable with their wealth, and Cartier designed the Maharaja of Patiala's diamond necklaces. Even here in South India, Raja Ravi Verma and his clan, they were very Vijayanagara Empire. So they used wealth as a symbol, they literally adorned themselves. And the same is true if you visit any of our shrines, wealth by the church, by the Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, Hinduism, all of it, wealth was showcased as a way for power. There's a beautiful phrase which talks about abharana, which is the ornamentation culture of India. And apparently, gods have to be ornamented so that not a single part of their body is visible. Just put more jewelry and jewelry and jewelry. So wealth was used as a way to say, I am this big person. So that was then. Then after that, I think when I grew up and stuff, it was the opposite. It was the license Raj. So wealth, most people didn't have wealth. This is the stuff that we all three are talking about, is this middle class mentality. And honestly, Malini, I'm not sure that's a bad thing. Although growing up, it was very painful like that when you saw all these rich kids and, flaunting their wealth, and you felt so poor. The thing that I remember from childhood in Chennai was wearing wedding clothes and standing in the bus stop and waiting for the bus to go attend a wedding. And I was thinking, why this is so unfair. Wish we had a car to go, dressed in all this finery. But now it's completely different in today's India. I think wealth has become normalized. Wealth has become aspirational. Wealth is achievable, attainable, and therefore the conversation itself has changed.
Rishi, what about you? And on your entrepreneurial journey, Rapido is now one of the biggest or second biggest? Biggest? Okay, so biggest mobility platform in the country, and your own entrepreneurial journey. Tell us about how your relationship with money.
When we started the firm, the only thing that we wanted to do is create more impact. I think that's the common thing that brought all three co-founders together.
Mm-hmm.
That came up with anecdotes in the stories, and the confidence in building this company came in as we went in. For example, when we launched one of our city, Mysore, just before, couple of days before Dasara, one of the captain came into the office and actually started giving sweets to everybody. And we were surprised. It's still not festival yet. Why are we being given sweets? So he went ahead explaining, I work as an accountant in XYZ company. I didn't think I could afford a new dress to my daughter this festival. Thanks to you guys, we were able to do this. Hence, we believed, hey, there can be more ways where we can add more value
But at a
to them.
personal level, Rishi, I mean, when you grew up in this middle class home, right, and how you spent
Right.
and how your own relationship with money was to
Correct.
now, I mean, I'm presuming you are rich, right?
I wouldn't say so, but yeah.
No, I'm saying so. How has your relationship with money changed? Has it changed? Has your consumption changed?
Actually,
Yeah.
one of my very early childhood dream was to get my mom into a shopping mall, give her a credit card, ask her to shop whatever she wants without looking at the price tag, right? So that was one of the actual goal that I had written for myself, right? So because the constraints were all over, and given in a typical middle class family, that's very normal as well, that those and my mom is somebody who spends 80% of her time in kitchen in the day, right? So just being able to have small things well is a very hard barrier to cross if you're not well off from the money point of view.
What about you, Deepak? Your relationship with money, has that changed?
Oh yeah, a whole lot.
At
I
a
think.
personal level,
So
talk about it.
yeah,
In what way has it changed?
spending was not luxury, not because we didn't want to. It just wasn't there. So what was the point of even thinking about it? So my father sometimes had to fly personally for some things, and he had to put money from his own pocket. And I remember that he used to the prices of a one-way ticket from Delhi to Bangalore was 7,000 rupees even in 1992. So it is not. It was tough to find that money, and he would borrow it and then pay it back and all that stuff. So early days was different. When we started the company, we had no money. My first company I started in 1998. So then we built a financial accounting package. We met a bunch of people, and we wanted to build this software that will change things. And I met a guy in Commercial Street, tiny little hole in the wall shop, who had 80 crores of revenue and 4 crores in a suspense account, and he wanted us to help him find out why he had that 4 crores in that suspense account. And we were tech guys working with his accountant and trying to figure things out. And one day he sat down and said, "What do you guys want to do?" And we were like, we're young kids, and we're like, "You want to earn money?" "No, you don't want to earn money." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you're selling software for some ridiculously low price. You don't want to earn money." So I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "If you want to earn money, you will make pipes." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I am in the steel business." He was in the steel business. He had this thing which would take steel, which came in rolled things, unroll it and send it somewhere else. That was 80 crores a year in 1998. So
Wow.
that was all he did. He said, "That's what I do. And there are people I sell to who make pipes, steel pipes. And they make 4x my turnover. If you want to make money, you will make pipes." The first very interesting thing was, so Bangalore is very understated in terms of money. You could stand in Veena stores next to a guy who's probably worth 100 crores. Both of you will be in jeans and a t-shirt, and he'll also be eating the same idli with the same chutney. And you would have no idea. You'll talk to him after 15 minutes and find out, oh my God, this guy's like a 100 crore net worth guy and all that. It's very possible. I remember somebody once, a friend from Delhi told me, "Yo, Bangalore people are very weird." So what happened? I was in this plane and Rahul Dravid was there, and he was flying economy or something, and nobody gave him any bhav. Nobody went to him and hounded him for autographs and all that stuff. Like he was flying from Bangalore, and I was sitting
In
there.
fact, Rahul Dravid, when I was interviewing him for the book, he said Bangaloreans allow celebrities to live their lives.
Yes.
They don't put them on a pedestal.
So when the first time I made some money, it was 2007. It just happened because a company I was working with was sold. So I had, for the first time, a long time, I saw a slightly bigger bank balance. And then Kingfisher had just started and they had a business class. First, whatever that thing was, Kingfisher First, they called it. And it was 25,000 rupees. It was not a lot of money, 25,000 rupees return trip to Delhi. And I had a young baby. I mean, he was 2-3 months old at the time. And decided we're going to fly Kingfisher First. And you will not believe how much I had to fight with myself. Because you could get the same thing for 12,000 rupees. But I had to pay 25,000 rupees. And I could not, I'm paying from my pocket. And it is an unnecessary extra expense, right?
Everybody can relate.
So at some point, you're fighting with yourself and you're saying, no, I'm doing this once because I made this money and that's why I'll do this. So it has been a lot of these little things that has kind of shaped my thinking about money. Like, why do I think so much? It's not like I can't earn it back. It wasn't even a lot of money at that time.
In fact, I would like us to talk about different cities and how they create wealth and how they spend it, right? I mean, it's something we dived into, remember Deepak? And in the book Unboxing Bengaluru, we were talking about how money behaves in different cities, and it is so different.
Yeah.
How Delhi earns its money and how it spends it, and how people show off versus how Bombay does. Delhi has color, money has color, black and white, and that color shapes a lot about how you are spending that money, right? I mean, in Bombay, it is about dhanda money, right? The trading money and the Bollywood money, and those two things really shape how the money behaves in that city. Hyderabad is a very different ball game, and it's a fascinating insight that Deepak, in fact, had shared, that it's your surname that decides a whole lot. It tells you, gives you clues about how the money is behaving. Chennai is a very, very family-oriented thing. So, and Bangalore is the first generation money.
Yeah.
This is the first generation money. It's
Absolutely.
the most nimble, most flexible, most risk-taking. Can we talk about how different cities generate wealth? Then talk about what those shifts are. And also want to talk about how first generation wealth feels very different, behaves very different.
So, I mean, I've been in these cities and I think as much as they were certain things, a lot of things have changed.
Absolutely.
So, Delhi is also a land of startups. In fact, more listed startups in Delhi than Bangalore. I hope Rapido lists soon so that we can even the game and all that. But to that extent, money, the new money, if you may, has also started to happen. India was a Sifarish culture for the longest time, which means you either needed a recommendation from someone already rich or you needed to be born into that family to be rich for the most part, right? And then that changed because you got new entrepreneurs. Bombay was a trading culture, like you said, business at different levels, mills. But both these cities came up on the back of a lot of real estate money. Bangalore is one of the few.
Bombay and Delhi.
Yes, both of them. So any industrialist in Bombay will have a ton of real estate, in that city, and so it is in Delhi. Bangalore is not exactly like that. There are rich real estate people, but a lot of the rich came from the IT world. When Infosys and TCS came in much later. For 2004 is when it listed. I remember in 2000. I was a struggling entrepreneur. A friend of mine, senior from college, he had just cashed in his Infi ESOPs and made a lot of money, even by today's standard. So he didn't know what to do with this money, and he had already quit. So he would go to the flower market in KR market, which is now moved to, I think, Gandhi Bazaar. But that's in the flower market at 5 a.m. There would be these trucks that would come with flowers, and there would be these women and men who would sit down on the ground and sell the flowers after kneading them, threading them and all that stuff. They needed money. They would take 100 rupees from him in the morning, and by 8:30 or 9 when the market was, all the stuff was sold, they would give him back 200 rupees.
Oh, wow.
He was trying to figure out this microfinance world at that time, and he would actually come and physically give 100 rupee notes and make a note of who paid back, who didn't pay back, why they wouldn't pay back. With the people who didn't pay back, and the problem that they couldn't get anything done the next day. But they would give you 100% return on your money every day. They had no problem doing that because that was the cost of money at that time for these guys. Bangalore was more IT culture, I think. And therefore the money that was coming in was of people who had never really had money before. So they didn't really, and a lot of them are engineers. Engineers are introverts for the most part. They don't like to show off their wealth. I mean, if you put too much attention on me, I really don't want it. And it was also a cultural thing. I think it's there in Tamil Nadu also, which is don't put too much highlight on what we are, on us. So you find the richer families who will hate, they will probably not even come on a podcast because they're afraid of the exposure that it would give them.
Nazar.
Or something like that, right? So they would abhor spending. Because it would throw attention to them. You will find that they wouldn't buy the Mercedes E-Class because it will
Which
throw
is just the
attention to them.
reverse of Delhi.
Yeah.
Even if you can't afford,
You just
you
buy.
want to stretch yourself to buy, right?
Yes, and so if you haven't got a Merc E-Class, are you really living in the first place? And
I mean, I remember somebody who had bought a brand new, I think, Toyota some car, and then he immediately changed to a Merc. And I said, why did you? He said, I'm a businessman and I was driving in and I realized people are judging me by my car. And he'd come from another city, okay? And he changed his car within a month because of that, signaling.
It's true that, like you were saying, most of the industrialists own most of the land per se, right? That Pareto principle exists in the country as well, that 80% of the people, 80% of the wealth is with less than 20% of the people. Specifically towards the new generational or wealth in the recent years, I think comes from, or if you look at the geography of cities, I think that depends a lot. I mean, makes it a lot more evident why it is in such way. For example, a lot of the concentration of wealth and people are towards Delhi in North India, right? And hence the density is high and per capita income of Delhi is also much higher, right? That results in consumer class, lot of scale, a lot of disposable wealth, and so convenience comes with it, right? So I think hence it's more concentrated towards there. But if you look at South India, maybe there's not one such extreme wealth that's there. Probably it's been divided between Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, and Hyderabad. I think that also makes a part that how it is different because there's not too many people at one place per se.
But would you say that, or would you say that Delhi and Mumbai have been far ahead of the curve? They are our biggest cities in India for years, decades, centuries, right?
Absolutely.
So they've had this journey, and
Correct.
these cities are still sort of coming up, isn't
That's
it?
changing.
No, that's for sure true. There's no debate about it. I mean, say for example, if you look at all of the Chennai and areas around Chennai, it's a huge manufacturing hub, right? All of the automobiles, lot of automobiles, lot of textiles, and also electronics. Manufacturing happens in and around Chennai. That's not true for, of course, even Bangalore has a lot of it, but the concentration is not so high. Right. So I think whenever it becomes, I think we should look at China, where the concentration of city and the industry there gives a natural ability to compete and skills to be developed for one particular city, so that the overall city becomes better economically by default, right? If you look at Shanghai and the others places around it, you find only electronics, right? So it's complete concentration. I think given we are a democracy, maybe we have not been able to do that, but that's for good. For example, I've been looking, what is that? Coconut grater as a machine, you can't find it anywhere. There is an automated coconut machines that's available in Tamil Nadu, because they consume so much coconut.
So you're talking about the cluster effect, right? And how it shapes the psyche of people. I mean, almost everybody is behaving, so there is a signaling that's going on. I remember sort of researching on it because I was actually wanting to do a piece of the markers of wealth, of being rich, and that is changing dramatically. So once upon a time, the car you drove, the phone you used, the clothes that you wore, Now almost everything is democratized.
Hmm.
If you have a certain threshold of income, you can afford everything, including iPhone or
That's so
whatever,
good,
right?
Yeah.
It's done. How do you signal? How do you differentiate?
No,
I
it's-
mean,
One is the
signal by-
experience,
Yeah.
right?
I
That
was-
experience and what you could do with it. And there are these invitation only clubs that you
Yeah.
get
Right.
entry to.
Right.
That I think is gaining
Soho House
lot
in
of
Bombay.
significance.
Exclusivity is
Yeah.
exclusivity.
Right?
is-
Experience,
is,
exclusivity, all
Yeah.
those. What are you seeing? How are these rich people looking at their money? Who are these rich people?
So
How different are they?
There,
Deepak?
I mean, exclusivity isn't desirable everywhere, because sometimes, like a friend who's very rich who came from Canada back to India, he had this. They wanted to go to watch something. It was a match of some sort, and there was this little box that was created, and there was only them in that box. There were 2 or 3 people in the box. There was a whole crowd elsewhere, and they were having fun, and the waves and all that stuff. And these guys were sitting in the box and watching. And he's like, dude, this is exclusivity, but it's also excludivity, because I am not having as much fun as the people outside me.
Absolutely.
It's at some level it's not
Absolutely.
as desirable as that. But I mean, the richer people in India, the cultures, subcultures are changing, right? So there's some people who desire the exclusivity because they want to go to certain places, don't have to be in a crowd. Today, you can't go to a concert in India. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The concert is going to be ridiculously crowded. The experience is not that great. And you're not going to get to helicopter in and out. So you're going to travel in a very crowded, bad transport situation, regardless of which car you have. So therefore, some of it is the money is not going to be able to buy a better experience over there. It may be able to marginally move you forward or backward in the crowd, but it doesn't change much. In other cases, the exclusivity is real, in the sense that there are clubs where you can't get in unless you know somebody who's already there. Or
Is that a big deal for the new generation?
Good question. There are a lot more new generation wealthy now.
Yeah. I
There's a
think
lot
clubs
more.
are a big deal. I think
Clubs
to
are a
have
big deal.
access. See, in India, I think wealth gives you the freedom to choose things that you till now
Correct.
did not have. And in India, the marker of middle class childhood is constantly being surrounded by people. So in a sense, I think one way that wealth facilitates is to afford you loneliness or being alone or solitude. I think that exclusivity but this is a very good
So
example.
another perspective to add is, I think I was getting recently my home redone at my native. I got an wood artifact to my home, and my mom was like, "Hey, we used to have something very similar in 1980. Now, why would you pay so much for the same thing?"
Yeah.
Right? Then it flashed me. Then I went about reading why this whole loop of the same thing in the world coming back after certain years, right? I think industrialization made it everything boxes, right? Everything straight lines, everything squares there. And pre-industrialization, it was more about more
Art and
rounds,
culture.
Yeah.
more
Artisanal.
yeah. If you look at for a lot of people, still IKEA is a luxury, right?
Yeah,
Which is for and hence
It's for
it
the
is
middle class,
yeah,
right?
it's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But for the same middle class, after maybe 20 years, I don't think it'll be the same.
Yeah, they'll
Because
want what you have.
They would want what that is artisanal, what that is rounded, where there is more curves involved and all of it, which is what today's
Correct,
luxury
absolutely,
is, right?
absolutely.
So I think that's a loop. I mean, we are in actually that whatever was not fancy. I think
Yeah.
something similar that my what is that the saree that my wife wore, whatever was 40 years ago is now same fashionable, and she got it. She got something new, and my mom was like, "Hey, wasn't this the same thing that I had maybe 40 years ago, right?"
Deepak, how are you seeing the creation of these new millionaires across cities? Do you see some of the tech cities kind of shifting gears and moving the needle far faster, far better than some of the other cities?
It's a different wealth. I'll give you an example. India, if you look at the wealthy were created by mostly creating their own companies, earning profits, or whatever it was, of fragrance of that. But the newer wealth has come from two sources which did not make people millionaires earlier. First one is buy IPOs and shares and ESOPs and all of this stuff.
Which is Bombay,
The
stock market.
Not just Bombay. Bombay was the IPOs of the, and typically it was the merchant bankers and though that community that would largely become rich, right? But here you've gone and given ESOPs to people who would normally not even buy shares. Give me money or bye-bye, was the culture, right? It is the culture for the most part.
Yeah.
But suddenly you force-fed people with ESOPs, and Infi did in the beginning, and then even later startups in the US started, and then, it became a currency. That currency was not valuable until suddenly it became really valuable. Some of the culture started showing in the IT companies where they got ESOPs. The GCCs would give ESOPs of their US arms, and suddenly they'd be like, oh man, I'm rich. I worked at Microsoft for a year and his share price has gone up 3x, and now I have a few crores sitting in, because this is sort of, you never put any value to this ESOP when you got it.
How many people have you given ESOPs to at Rapido?
So I think everybody in the company gets ESOPs.
Everybody.
From an testing engineer to an boy who cleans up the tables, everybody gets ESOPs in the company.
So how many millionaires do you think you would be producing? But I don't know, when are you planning your IPO?
Probably in a couple of years to come. There is no timeline that we have decided for.
Okay.
So yeah, we would want more millionaires for sure that's been born out of the company.
So I know of a girl working at Google. She's 26-year-old. She threw an anniversary party for her parents in a 5-star hotel. I think she spent 30-40 lakhs.
Wow.
Which brings up the question, how do you deploy your wealth? On the one hand,
and it was like, it was unheard of, in our generation, where a 26, 27-year-old, a regular multinational job can ever afford something like that. So aspirations as well as income both have sort of converged to make that possible. So
and also how do you use this wealth?
Yeah,
that will be very interesting to see how it's one thing to have it, and but this whole conversation has been about how we use the wealth. And
Right.
Yeah, I'll give you the other macro. Bangalore was the 6th biggest city in terms of wealth in 1991 or
1991.
And today it's the 3rd, and it's rapidly catching up onto Delhi. And this is not wealth. This is just the amount of money you have as deposits in your bank accounts. Wealth is probably different. We don't have a really measure on a city level, but a lot of wealth that was traditional was real, which meant gold and real estate. A lot of new wealth is financial, which is investment.
That is a big shift, huh?
Yeah, that's a pretty massive shift, because although the super rich were always rich in
all of the above,
right? Because you could say Ambani is rich because he has Reliance shares, but he also has a bunch of land and Jamnagar and this and that and all that. But so he was rich both real estate wise and IPO or financial wise. But it was not true of a lot of smaller people. People would value themselves. Oh, I own these 4 pieces of land somewhere, etc. That's what makes me rich. But now it's like, oh, here's my account statement, and that's what makes me rich. And this is real wealth, because it's not like if I own a piece of land, I can't just sell it and get money. Whereas if in a financial thing, it's a mutual fund that you own. We have a mutual fund, so I'm going to say this. But you could sell it the next day and realize that money within 2 days and actually use it for whenever you want. So it's a little more liquid wealth in that sense.
Maybe that's a good place to talk about the character of the city.
Yes.
Because I was thinking that in Chennai, most of the wealthy people I know, they have no problem investing in land. Whereas I would venture to guess that in Bombay, because of the financial savviness, would they be deploying their wealth more in shares?
Would it be?
I'm telling you this, Bombay is as fascinated by land as Chennai is.
Yeah, of course, because it's the finite land.
Finite land, but it's not finite. They've decided these islands are Bombay. But you could go beyond the island. Who stops you? Bombay is anyway, you could connect it anytime you wanted by a little more metros and this and that. But no, they value land and real estate quite as much. The real estate, Bombay is a different world financially. You'd pay what you pay in Bangalore for a 3-bedroom, and what we call in Bangalore a 3-bedroom house is a minimum, say 1,200 square foot, and then they'd call a 400 square foot house a 3 BHK and charge more than the Bangalore 1,500.
But that's the real estate. Is that mindset?
So now when you look at the person in Bombay, he's like, I need to own at least one house. And for him, the barrier is that 5 crores that he needs to own a matchbox of a house. versus the Bangalore guy can still get over with 75 lakhs or a crore, which is what may be needed at a a reasonably comfortable level. So the aspirational level and the value
So
of
what
it
you're
is
saying
different.
is just the cost of housing is so expensive in
yeah.
Mumbai that there is an obsession to at least own one, and then it consumes. But you were talking about creation of new millionaires. And can you just project forward? How do you see the landscape change?
So I think more of this will happen because people will value more and more how much the. So this is happening in the market as we speak, right? Indians are investing more in India in the public markets. They're adding more money into mutual funds, they're adding more money into stocks, but they're also angel investing. It was not possible in 2005 or 2010 to go and say, I'm going to raise money from a bunch of domestic people and set up a company. Today, you could raise 40 crores with a nice idea in Bangalore. If you just
But that was
went around.
always true for Bangalore of the last 10 years particularly.
Not the 40. You could get like a 50 lakh. I know because
I'm
in
coming
2000.
to you.
Yeah. So, there are people who have the credentials and they say, go in and say, listen, in fact, she's probably better because we're in this VC place. I have never been successful getting VC for myself because maybe wrong color of hair, etc. But however, I know people who are much younger who go in and say, well, you know what, I'm going to raise a $10 million check. $10 million. Such $10 million is now 90 lakh rupees, 90 crore rupees. So it's possible to raise a 10 million, not just from foreign investors, but also from domestic investors.
What has changed? What has changed?
Confidence.
And excess, more money than you require, and therefore the ability to invest.
So confidence, one, you've got access to capital. So I mean, these people, first generation entrepreneurs are sitting on capital which they can deploy. And I think the risk taking ability also has surged.
Because you have an output, right? Because I can go and list your company in the market, I can sell it to somebody else. Earlier, people used to only lowball you when you wanted to sell your company.
Absolutely. I think another thing is the exposure to everybody around you, right? I mean, usually what's the story that sells is rags to riches, right? And once there are few stories around you of somebody who has come from a very modest background and being successful to do something in his life, I think that percolates into the
everybody else.
Culture around.
Of course.
Right?
The peer effect.
And that makes other people also to chase that. I think that was a classic example of how Flipkart and couple of other companies was example for a lot of the other startups that came in,
Yes.
In the wave of maybe 2015 to 2018 to create that level of impact in the country and elsewhere, right? I think that's changing very rapidly. I think, for example, the technology adoption in retail would blow up. Yeah. Technology adoption in agriculture would blow up because these are unique problems for the country on how it works. And I think there is billion-dollar businesses sitting behind these, and I'm sure there'll be
and
so
just
this is deepening of the startup ecosystem.
And also
in
places like Coimbatore, where I was born, the technology adoption, the wealth creation is happening not just in all the big cities, but also in the second tier cities as well. And the stories that come with the wealth creation, where failure is normalized. Oh, he became the startup happened, it failed, but then rebound happened. So then risk becomes normalized. And failure.
This is so true. We come from a generation where you didn't fail a single exam, okay, till your 12th standard or whatever, and even through your engineering. Yeah, centum, the thing, which after you come into business, you realize, boss, you're getting rejected, slapped at every single day in your life. And this fear of failure was such a big problem. My kids don't have it. It's like, big deal.
So that's one big shift that you see, the fear of failure, that confidence which has gone up, risk-taking ability has gone up.
I'll figure it out. Don't worry about me.
And social media has made information and stories accessible. So everybody can see on their Instagram feed about everybody's success and failures.
So where will you were saying something?
Yeah, to touch upon the point where the lot of tier 2's wealth that's there. I think the aspirations in tier 2's are much higher than as a whole, because there are a lot more tier 2 cities in the country.
Yes.
And there are not ways for them to spend, which means that I can clearly see there'll be a lot more philanthropists coming out of tier 2 cities than tier 1 cities per se, because if they are always been living in a tier 2 city and been building a huge business, probably they can give back also more faster per se than a tier 1, because while the access for money is different.
Do you see this giving back happening? I struggle with it, because I think giving back is a very interesting phenomenon.
Absolutely.
But how much do you see people doing it, and at what level?
So in fact, there I wanted to ask you one question. This, if you look at Bangalore itself, right, and people who have emerged, who are giving back, belongs to, from Kiran Majumdar Shaw to Nitin Kamath to Nandan Nilekani, Rohini Nilekani. They are of a certain generation, right? How do you see the younger generation sort of looking at wealth and giving it away? Is there a big difference? So that, and before that, I wanted you to talk about where are these new millionaires going to come from. One he spoke about is the deepening of the startup landscape, right? Not just tech startup, but manufacturing, all that.
Everything,
The second is the tier 2 cities that he spoke about. Where else do you think these new millionaires will come from, and which city do you think will sort of create more and more, and what's the basis on which they will be created?
So I think there are lots of others. Like for instance, the typical doctor after his age of 40 is a millionaire for the most part. Tends to become, or close, in the larger cities, because it's a profession that almost guarantees success. To a certain extent, many lawyers are, many people in the professional fields, doctors, lawyers, CAs, tend to become, as they become bigger, there's more wealth that's created. That's one layer. There's another professional layer now. You hire people, you pay them a lot. Some people get paid more than 10 crores a year.
So they're multinational jobs,
So they're multinational, not even domestic. So
Yeah.
an Indian mutual fund might actually pay as much as that to a senior employee. That is the second layer. So the professional layers of people, and this will be across. I see smaller towns moving up in size because simply of the capacity to earn that income and spend it, and also the tier 2 people who've come to tier 1 who can afford to go back to tier 2 to set up their own businesses. So you see the Bangalore people go to Mysore to set up, or Tumkur to set up businesses. That I think more. So Walmart did this spectacularly in the US, where they said we will move our entire office to Bentonville in Arkansas, where there was nothing and they had to create pretty much everything from scratch, but they forced every executive to move. Reliance did that with Jamnagar to a certain extent. And of course, Jamnagar is reasonably well developed because of this. Tata's did this with Jamshedpur, but we don't have enough of these. We need a lot more of these people going to Shimogas and Coimbatore. It's already reasonably developed with Tirupur and all that, but Tirupur is a very well developed ecosystem now.
What you are saying is more and more millionaires will come from places which are not on the map right now.
Which we haven't even heard, which we don't think is a meaningful thing. There are cities in Kerala which have ridiculous amounts of money.
This is Gulf money, right?
I don't know where it's come from, but I know that there's a lot of money. But
it could be the hunger also.
Yeah,
the hunger. It could be the hunger to achieve is far stronger and more passionate in tier 2 cities, maybe tier 3, tier 4, because you have a lot to prove. When you are here in Bangalore, I think you are sort of in an ecosystem and a bubble where you sort of assume that, oh yeah, I will also traverse this path. Whereas if you're sitting in Ranchi or, that hunger that we all talk about and that we want our children to have.
Does environment shape behavior? Does environment shape new millionaires?
Yes, definitely. I would.
Can you talk about that?
Maybe I'll add in here. So, time equals money used to be a tier 1 phenomena for a long while.
Okay.
But at least in the Rapido CTS, you can see that there are lot more cities now where people tend to cancel the ride if that is if maybe it's delayed by 1 or 2 minutes, right? Versus there are cities where they're okay to wait for 10-15 minutes, right? So
You are noticing in tier 1 cities, or?
This used to be a tier 1 phenomenon always, that
Okay.
We are spoiled by choice, frankly.
Yeah.
In a tier 1 city, there are multiple apps and would show up, right? But in a tier 2 city, if somebody used to request for a ride, probably they were okay to wait for maybe a minute or two later if it arrived.
But that you see cancellation much
Correct.
higher.
Now that's been changing, which signals that time equals money is also getting deeper into the smaller cities.
But there's no difference in aspiration levels. There is the Maruti Zen problem. I don't know if you guys have seen a Maruti Zen recently. Maruti Zen was this really famous car, right?
Yeah.
But when
what
did you
is
last
this Maruti
see a
Zen problem?
So have you seen a Maruti Zen recently?
No, not really.
But if you travel from here to Mysore or Bangalore, go to the smaller towns and stop there for a chai or a coffee, you will see a Maruti Zen. It is aspirational at a different city level because, and it is no longer aspirational at the cities, so they have sold their Maruti Zens and the Maruti Zens are bought over there. The Ford Escorts are available.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we should talk about is this word cortisol and stress, and I'm hearing more and more of this word, and particularly from the newly minted millionaires, where they work-life balance and fitness and health and all have become
absolutely
part of the journey. Not I'll do the journey, then I will do this. I'll get better. I'll get fitter.
So why don't we talk about that? The burnout that we speak and this chase for money, this relentless chase for money, and what it does to people, right? The burnout, the stress, speed and versus stability, right? I mean, in this city, I see this hustle culture, right? Everybody is onto something. So there is a day job, there is an evening job, there is something in the night, there's a weekend versus weekday. All that is great in the larger pursuit of things.
Correct.
But
so,
what does it lead to?
You be a dog walker during the morning, then you do danda and during the day, in the evening.
Right. So, for sure, maybe I have to speak about myself and my journey through as well. Probably the initial years where we used to put in more than 14 hours or 16 hours a day continuously, and there's no weekday wala concept at all, right? So I think that's okay to do at a certain point of time where where the adrenaline keeps you taking ahead, and you can absolutely well do that. But never that maybe I felt there is something called Monday blues and whatnot, that I feel that work and life ka balance, blah blah blah, because work used to be my life by default, right? So which also meant that even though the stress, whatever it was fueled to be passion basically, or passion fueled to be stress, or whatever you call that, there was no limitation per se, and that went while for a long period of time, until we realized that, hey, the companies can't grow at our pace, right? So, and with COVID, it was a huge reveal for us as well, that when a company in the growth stage suddenly is getting to zero, no rights happening, revenue is rock bottom, 80% of their customers uninstalled the app, all of the drivers whom we have acquired, in the last 5-6 years, a lot of them went back to their hometown, and probably they never came back, and all of it.
Rishi, this thing you spoke about, right? You were here and then shrunk, and this chart that we see, it's so prominent in the startup world, right?
Absolutely.
Of course, there are millionaires and billionaires. You make money like that, but it's also a very volatile life, bringing such enormous stress. talk about that. What does it mean when you are chasing this on this relentless chase? And I'd like to go around the room and ask this
Right.
question.
So, see, the motivation for you to keep coming back next day and going, go at it. All of the fancy quotes in the YouTube and Instagrams might not help, because it can only take you to an extent, right? Which means that for you to really be committed to that particular problem, you'll need to, in a startup world, I would say anywhere between 5 to 10 years, you'll need to dedicate it completely, so that there is there is compounding effect that will kick in only after that time, right?
What about burnout? Have you had burnout? Have you had fatigue where you said, oh, this relentless chase of growth, valuation, money, all
Right.
that is there, but this burnout is kind of killing you?
No, yeah, what is that? At times, yes, that burnout does feel in, right? There has to be a cope-up mechanism that you can fall upon. Basically, for few people it is playing a sport. For few people it is meditation. For few people something else. I think for few people it is buying cars, right? So I mean, it could be.
What have you done to deal with
For
your
me,
burnout?
I think walking is my thing actually. So whenever when I'm burnt, I'll just go. I'll start walking there, so that I can come back, gather my thoughts. So I think that's a way to channel your energy in a different to a different place, so that you can come back to senses and make this well.
What about you?
I have a different opinion on this. I
Sure.
think burnout is real. I mean, I've failed at 2 startups, so
You
I've
failed
seen
at 2
as
startups.
in, I've seen the. I mean,
Yeah.
one I had to shut down, one I had to walk out of. I fired myself in that, and it was because we didn't have enough money to even pay my salaries eventually. I mean, I relive those times, and I sometimes in my head, and I'm like, that was just. It's just had such a lasting impact on my life that I just don't want that anymore. It is the worst feeling in the world. I think to a certain extent today things have changed. The newer startups get funded relatively early enough, so they don't have to worry about this stuff as much as I used to. They do have to worry about things like how will I grow, how will I this thing. But to a certain extent, there may be only a very relatively small period between. So you do get, for instance, you get a salary after your funding, which was new to me, because my first company we had to make salaries through revenue first. We had no funding of any sort. It's
My
miserable.
experience
Yeah.
is slightly different because I am a very new startup founder, and to me, the terror of what are you going to do and how are you. I have a date with Claude right after this, and the terror of how are you going to grow is real.
Real, yeah.
But at the same time, I think I have seen that the most important things in your life, which is health and death of your loved ones, is no amount of wealth can control it. So there is a certain humility that I have, which says, yes, Vikram Hiresavi, my co-founder, and we have to do the work. We have a small team of 4 or 5 engineers who are teaching me a lot of things. But the role that luck plays in the growth, the folks that will happen that are unanticipatable. So in that sense, I think Zapigo, the way I view it is a gift. We are in the gifting business, but it's itself a gift to me. And
Right.
I'm deeply humbled by it. And I'm the passion and the cortisol that comes along with it. Then I don't sleep nights, and that is all there. I don't think I think it's unreal to say that, our work-life balance has to happen at every stage. The pain is there. But the great thing about doing it in Bangalore is, and I am an anomaly. I mean, startups are mostly male, and I am a female. I'm an older female. So I am an anomaly. So the normalization has happened, but yes, it hasn't normalized everything.
Absolutely.
So can I veer our conversation to the risk-taking ability of cities, and especially I want to talk about Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bengaluru, and talk about, does that have an impact? Is there a variation? what you see in Delhi versus what you see in Mumbai? And is it a very different kind of risk-taking ability that we are talking about?
So how do you define risk? For
Yes.
instance, the idea would be that can I lose a certain amount of money or can I lose a certain amount of time in order to do something? This was not very easy in Bangalore. When I started my first company in 98, I know a customer actually told me, wow, oh, you started a company, is that because you didn't get a job at Infosys or TCS or something like that? Which was actually true, and to me it was shocking because he said, you should come work for me. Why are you like starting a business just like that? That was like considered bad risk taking. Today, now it is considered like, no, this is a good resume to have.
So that's a big shift.
It's a big shift in that. So, but the amount of risk was different because at that time, if you failed, you would have found it difficult to get back into the workforce perhaps. Because now you have a gap in the resume, you didn't do anything, etc., etc. Now it's no longer that. You take a risk and you fail, you probably get a better job at the end of the day, right? So your risk is not as much as you think it is. The second thing is the risk-taking ability in terms of research. India has traditionally been very bad at that. We don't do research at the corporate level as much. And I crib about this as a person who's a financier in the financial world, because I'm like, if you don't develop your own batteries, if you don't develop your own, how do you kind of stop your dependence on other things, on outside entities? Because if we are the second largest textile exporter in the world probably. We don't make a single sewing machine. 99% of our sewing machines are imported from China and 1% from Italy. We don't make them. We used to import 90% of our defense equipment till about 3 or 4 years ago, and that's changed.
So, Make in India probably is a very recent phenomenon for us. Yeah.
Think of it as there were no willingness to take any risk.
The beauty of India in its entrepreneurial journey is that while we are an ancient civilization, we are a young entrepreneurial culture. So, for example, to compare, Paris has luxury, LA has films, New York has finance, that kind of deeply entrenched identity linked to a city. India has to a certain extent, mostly with Bombay and finance, but Delhi is nebulous now, Chennai is nebulous now, and even smaller cities, their identity is being recreated by entrepreneurship, and therefore it's a very interesting state to be, because once you could say this type of company will exist in Chennai, this type of IT will exist in Bangalore, but now here Bangalore is being reshaped. It's not just IT, it is a lot of other things. So that's a fantastic thing, I think.
We've had a lot of service businesses, right? So we've had a lot of service businesses takers. Bangalore's had the IT companies, relatively service-based, high employment companies. Some of these service company founders are now getting out and starting product businesses, aircraft engines. We don't make aircraft engines. Outside of HAL, there is now some private entrepreneurs who have come out of service businesses and generated a lot of cash for themselves, who are now willing to invest that money into building aircraft engines. It will take 8 to 10 years to develop. So having that mindset to think 10 years
and that is city specific, what you're talking about.
That was in Delhi, and that was a founder of a public company. And now Bangalore is doing a bunch of things around drones. So we're, I think the culture is evolving as we speak. There is no one rich anymore, unfortunately, or fortunately, thank goodness.
No one?
No one class of rich anymore. Like if your surname is Birla, then you're rich.
That has changed, of course.
It has massively, and it means it's democratic also, which means that you can at some point get rich on the merits of your own achievements.
So can I veer our conversation to the question I was asking, that the city vibe sort of shapes the behavior, and I'm talking specifically about Delhi, right? NCR, which is a PSU hub, which is a government power center, which is full of government employees, and it is also a startup hub, right?
Yes.
NCR. How do you see that, the vibe getting, the risk-taking ability getting shaped?
So a lot of policy changes perhaps are more visible in Delhi than they are visible here, right? So a lot of policy changes that happen in the earlier stages are possibly addressable with startups or businesses and risk takers in Delhi. Sometimes who are able to take the information that they get. I mean, it's not just that information, it's just the fact that that knowledge is concentrated there. Like tech knowledge is concentrated here, and they could use that to build better, things over there. Now, I don't have concrete examples of this right now, but it was there much more in the earlier world.
While Rapido was started in Bangalore, Delhi gave us the bike taxi framework was first formed in Delhi.
Yes,
Right?
and that
So,
dramatically
it
changed.
dramatically changed how today, we do more than 1 million rides every day in the NCR region.
What I wanted to ask is this black money and white money,
Yes.
right? And you see a whole lot of that in different cities at different levels. Real estate money, power money, politics money. There is a lot of black money and white money. How does that shape?
In Bangalore, you can actually pay fully in check, which means your bank transfer or something like that, and no extra component. Whereas if you go to Delhi, they'll say 40% by check and the remaining by cash.
What does it do because of this black and white business?
So
What does it do?
it favors economies where a lot of cash transactions happen. So shops, with the government where you bribe in cash,
Correct.
the bribes are earned in cash. They are the ones who therefore have the currency to play in these, in a larger black-oriented society. So if even now, if you go and try and buy land somewhere out in the outskirts of Bangalore, chances are you'll be asked to pay cash. There are places where if you go and so in the financial industry, we don't accept cash for the most part at all, right? So other than banks. So if a person comes and says, I want to invest in a mutual fund in cash, I'm like, zero, not even happening. I mean, although we're allowed to take 50,000 rupees, we're like, no, we don't want to deal with the
So what you are talking about is the efficiency. I mean, if it's a white economy, white transactions, I think the efficiency with which everybody can partake in that.
More people can partake in it, and not only the people who earn
who
and
have
who
the
have
black
avoided
money,
the
right.
black money in
Okay.
that sense. And to generate, to generate cash is a pain if you have the money in the bank account. You can't go to a bank and say, give me 10 lakh rupees in cash. He will ask you why. There will be 7 other questions, and income tax will send one notice and all that stuff. So you just don't want to go there anymore, right? So, but whereas white is fine. So,
Yeah.
I think when 2017 the UPI happened, a lot of the smaller transactions were supposed to go online, meaning they used to happen supposed to happen from bank with the demonetization effect and all of it. At least that was not reflecting in Rapido's and ecosystem, because even after that, around 80% of the transactions happen on cash, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Today, how much of it happens on cash?
The number hasn't changed much.
Okay.
really?
Right. So, which maybe it improved for sure, but not
Today, what is the percentage? Cash payment?
While we can't track currently because we are the money doesn't flow via us anymore.
Sure.
The customer pays the captain directly. So that, but the number is not significant change from 80%. Probably it will be around 70 or so, but not that it is 20 and 80 there.
It's very interesting because I would say, like for instance, if I go on a Rapido and I say I'm paying cash, I'm actually paying by UPI.
You are paying
Because
by
I'm just
UPI.
not using their systems
Yes,
to pay.
yes.
Correct.
But I'm actually using UPI to pay. I paid for everything, socks on a street vendor by UPI.
Panwala, beggars.
So in Delhi, I tell you what I saw. I saw somebody carrying a bag of cash to a jewelry store, just parked it, and it was hundreds and thousands of rupees, right? And that's how it is. So because you've got cash,
And
there's
same
only
with all the
limitation
luxury
how
stores.
much where you absorb that cash, right?
Yeah,
So you see this disproportionate expense in areas either like jewelry,
luxury goods.
gold, land. And also it brings certain rigidity in the sense if you have financial money, right? You withdraw and you can deploy it any way you like, and there is enormous flexibility how you are
can
able
do
to
it.
deploy. The moment it is black, one, there is limitation how much black cash you can keep, and two, how you deploy, you are constrained. There are only certain avenues where you will be able to
like
absorb
marriages.
that cash.
Marriages, for instance,
Yes,
can be...
marriage is a big
yes,
one.
It's a,
Cash economy.
it's a way to spend that cash. I think slowly India's, I mean, there's a phenomenon, and I read it somewhere, so I've adopted it internally. Money's only objective is to be spent. To be spent. Whether you spend it now, it's called spending. You spend it later, it's called investing and, whatever, saving or whatever it is. But once you realize this, because now earlier you save so that your kids could be in great, shape. Your kids don't want your money. Your kids are like, we learn our own money, don't worry about it. So we're like, okay, now what do I do? There's that and there's inherit, and then there's the pain of maintaining assets. I buy a house, there's a busted pipe somewhere, somebody has to fix it, blah. I don't want all that trouble. I just want my money in financial assets, so I keep it there. But then I do what with it? At some point I start spending it. That realization has started to come. So black is less attractive because I can't spend it, even if I wanted to, right? Because it's like, if I spend too much in cash, there will be questions. I go to a gold shop and I bring a lot of money in cash. The guy instantly says, give me your PAN card.
It's getting more complicated, right?
Yeah. So, and then you can do the Hawala circuits and all that stuff if you want. But inherently that has a sense of, we dealt with a Hawala guy, he's got his phone number, he gets caught 1 year later, my phone is found in his address book, unnecessarily they're coming and talking to me. There's, stuff like that happens. And increasingly it's getting more distasteful, but I think it's very different. Bangalore is a very white city by definition. It was that earlier also. Bombay has colors which are shades of grey. There are areas where only cash works and nothing else works.
Diamonds. Sending to Palanpur with the diamonds.
Diamond is cash?
There is a cash there is cash exchanged in the process, including that, the traditional fund of you tear a 5 rupee or 10 rupee note into half and you give one half to the guy, and all that stuff still happens. There is a undercolor of money, like he said, there is enough transactions happening, but as a percentage of total, it's much smaller now.
I think all of the businesses, the motivation to actually keep it in black is going away, because more and more it is driving towards having valuation, maybe the VC money, which can't happen in black by default, right? So you have to keep it white and you have to keep it transparent so that it is auditable and it is measurable in a way, right? I think that's a good way of making it, making the businesses adopt this white. I think that's more common in places where there are more startups and the ecosystem is maturing, right?
Well, the other thing is this black and white shift that is happening, and different cities are at different sort of levels. The other is the formal and informal capital ecosystems, right? Where you get your money, how that money flows, who you are able to borrow or lend from, and what you spoke about, right? Big VCs will need certain valuations, right? If you are doing black transactions, it's very hard for you to do it. Do you see that shift happening across cities?
So one of the reasons for black, in my view, is also this concept of getting this chit funds and loans.
Chit fund
in Bangalore. You know what a chit fund? A chit fund is like, let's say,
it's
4 of us.
Everywhere, right? In Delhi, it's also big.
It's also big. But it's actually both a funding and an investing concept, which in India we use as banks. So otherwise, imagine that we all put 1,000 rupees each, 4,000 rupees into the pool every month. Now each person gets to bid to say, Miko, I want to borrow that 4,000 rupees. How much will I borrow it for? So I can say, I will borrow 3,600 rupees, but I'll pay 4,000 rupees into that pool.
This is the informal
This is the sector, informal chit fund. This is a chit fund, right?
Yeah.
You create this. Now what happens is that extra 400 rupees actually goes back into the pool, and that extra 400 rupees is shared by all of the owners eventually equally. So you pay interest on your loans and you earn back that interest because it's your deposit as well. Right. This is informal. But a large part of this now happens in cash. Why? Because
it's still happening, huh?
Because the Uber driver or the Rapido driver does not have the time to go to the bank and do this stuff at certain point. Now, of course, much easier because now they have UPI. They can use UPI to transfer money and all of that stuff. But a lot of times they don't, in a lot of times they didn't have time to go to the bank and deal with stuff. So when there was cash, that would also be used as a mechanism to share things around, right? So there's no KYC, there's no ho gaya bas. You're the chit fund, you know people, and that's how you kind of do this. This black will get perhaps this portion of it will eventually perhaps get replaced by this UPI concept. But here's the thing, you introduce a 1 rupee charge on UPI, 1 rupee per year, it doesn't matter. You say that I will charge you 1 rupee per year, everything's going back to cash.
Seriously?
It doesn't matter what you do. You cannot introduce a charge on UPI at all for the common man. Person to person transfers just cannot happen.
Okay.
You can do it to merchants. I pay when we get UPI incoming transactions as a mutual fund, as an AMC, but you will not be able to convince the common man that even that 1 paisa that needs to get deducted beyond what he's paying is kosher. That just is not going to happen in India. You will get more merchants. So yeah, fine, you can get more merchants in. This black, otherwise you'll go back to a black economy.
I wanted to ask, just go around the room. So the next generation which is coming, the next phase of millionaires that we are building, in what way they are different? And if you can talk about how differently they are looking at money and investing it. And if you can talk about how differently they are shaped from a psyche point of view, if that is very different. And some of that could be repetition as well. And then talk about these new millionaires who are being born. Many of them don't belong to the place, or maybe the city, or maybe Bengaluru. And how important a stakeholder in the city are they? For the city as a voter, for the city as somebody who cares for the city. So I wanted to talk about this. So can you just start with this new generation of millionaires who are being built? What are they doing with their money?
So I think so whatever I'm seeing, they're investing, both private and public, they're investing in other these things. They're very cognizant of that fact that they don't need to, they need to kind of give back if they've earned, in the sense give back in the professional sense. I want to invest in another person's business because somebody invested in my business, one level. And the other one is that they're aware of their financial alternatives. They're not very big on real estate. I'll buy a house, maybe 2, but that's it. I'm not trying to build 70 properties for my kids. There are very few of those. The new millionaires seem to be more of the, I want to build I want to build the community that I have kind of started with and so on. There are some who now say, I want to build something in my hometown. So the traditional avenues used to be the temples or the religious places. I want to give there so that we can, because it's considered charity was to a religious place, because the religious place would then, spread it around.
I think very contrary to what he was saying, a lot of the new age millionaires, so to say, are giving back in different ways that are not traditional. For example, I don't see a lot of people giving it to a temple per se, or general ways of giving back, but they're creating those subcultures actually, right? So basically, somebody is investing into libraries. I know a person who has been created X number of libraries till date. The other person is bringing back wells. Paying so that the well which was not there, regenerating those wells.
This is actually interesting.
Right? Or even people who are creating those educational avenues for startup ecosystem per se, and a lot of the money is going there because I think the way of giving back is changing, and that's for good, I would say.
I think passion and preservation of wealth seem to be the 2 verticals in which wealth gets deployed by first generation millionaires. I think there is a trajectory that already exists. So for example, in India, still people I think the young millionaires are figuring out how they want to spend, because in the West, there are generational wealthy people. They'll go buy 5,000 acres in Africa because they love wildlife and they have the means to do it. And then they go start elephant camps and things like that. That level of evolved spending power, it's still happening in India. I think though the wealthy in India have become very cognizant of the power of the wealth, and so there's two halves, like a Ganda Berunda. There's one half is saying, I have this money and I need to preserve it, so yes, let me invest in, mutual funds and other startups and things like that. So that is, I would say, the preservation instinct.
How does wealth reshapes identity and belonging? And at a time when you see this people who get rich and then they are hopping, right? They are in Singapore, they are in Dubai, they have a global passport, global visa, and they are able to sort of roam around in different parts. So they can buy their visa, right, in existence. And this sense of belonging, because Bangalore is about migrants who are now becoming rich as well.
I think,
and many people talk about this sense of belonging, the sense of passion for the city.
I think it's a bit of both. I think wealth can increase your belonging with a certain group, but I think also wealth can create rootlessness and you feel increasingly isolated. So unless you consciously try to create belonging, I would argue that it could go both ways. You could lose touch with who your roots were or your friends were, and that is the sacrifice you make, I think, with becoming wealthy.
Interesting thing about wealth and the idea of identity of Bangalore or its entity. I think wealth has made us a little more global in our opinion. We have the ability to move. The traffic in Bangalore is tough. And a lot of the richer people, as once they generate their wealth, I know people who move to Mysore simply because it's a better city. It is a better city by traffic, by
and chocolate also now.
There's now there's enough, and there is now activities,
artisanal activities.
Yes, and Mangalore also, though the climate is tremendously bad, the infrastructure is better. So people will, I think, move perhaps to reconnect with the cities that they were originally from. In some cases, Mysore, Mangalore, other places. But I think at some level, this wealth can change cities in different ways. There is a friend, Arun Pai, who does Bangalore walks and all that. One of the things he said was, let's beautify this places under flyovers. And
Ugly Indian.
So I have gone and put ugly Indian. So I have gone and painted near my, because he organized this thing. And then I said, let's go. I want to be involved. And a lot of people like me came in. And there are a lot of people who are not from Bangalore. They just identify with the city. So now they're like, oh, this is our city. Let's beautify it. Let's clean it. It's starting. It's in the early stages. Of course, we've cleaned it up, but nothing major has happened since then. They are redoing the place again, so we'll have to do another cleanup. But I think more of these activities will come, and we will want to be part of the reshaping of the city.
See, while a lot of the fanfare about speaking in Kannada, and so I hear both sides of the stories actually, because being a Kannadiga and in Bangalore, I understand the cries of the people who lived here and always been here versus the migrant population. Lot of the bipolarity that's being shown in the media and all of it is very small influential groups creating those, in my opinion, and has very less effect on everyday living. And in general, people who come here also seek that belongingness, and they are the people who are changing the ways of how the city looks, like he was mentioning, and how the city operates, and the kind of initiatives that's been there. If you on a random day, if you go to Cubbon Park, maybe you don't see people speaking a lot of Kannada per se in the weekend mornings, but there are communities there are communities that are being built, and they actually go do Bangalore walks and or show the landscape of Bangalore to the other people, even though they don't know the language, right? I feel fortunate about being in this city, and
Yes.
It's a great-
That's
it's a
what
Bangalore is
global
a-
cities are
Yeah.
about. They are global cities are melting pots.
Yeah, the melting
And it's
pot.
They're
a,
melting
Bangalore
pot.
particularly is a fantastic city to fall in love with, because it is, as we all know and have felt, it's an accepting city.
I am an outsider because I grew up outside, everything. But I feel that this is a brilliant city to be in. Of course, the traffic, one day, because
But
of
which
my...
city doesn't have problem? Tell me.
Yeah,
please.
that's
This
true.
is a-
I mean, you have Delhiites fleeing Delhi
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of the pollution problem. In Mumbai, high real estate cost,
Yeah.
right? So every city has a problem.
problem.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
But
no, I
and
agree.
we'll
It's great.
figure that out.
I hope the wealth creates more identity for Bangalore and makes it more livable. I hope so. And I hope I am wealthy enough to be able to influence that. That's all I can
Okay,
say.
thank you
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good to,
Thank
good
you.
to do this.